Trigonometry, Scotland, and Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda located on the North Atlantic and off the east coast of North America. The islands form the northeastern corner of the infamous Bermuda Triangle, with San Juan and Miami Beach. San Juan is located 981 miles south of Bermuda, while Miami Beach is located 1,034 miles southwest of Bermuda. Also, the distance between Miami Beach and San Juan is 1,029 miles away. In meanwhile, Scott Lang, with his Ant-Man suit, was swimming near the shore of North Carolina. In fact, he has the same latitude as Miami Beach, which is 80.130 degrees west, and has the same longitude with Bermuda at 32.3078 degrees north. Number 1. Define the angle of the Bermuda Triangle. Second, find the distance between Scotland and Miami Beach. Still confusing, right? Don't worry, we have a diagram for you. As you could see at the right top corner, we have a diagram with all the information needed. And let's start with the first question. Define the angle of the Bermuda Triangle. As you could see, we got all of the side measurements, such as the Miami Beach to San Juan and San Juan to Bermuda and the Miami Beach to Bermuda. So in this case, we got all of the side measurement except all of the angle. Okay, before we start solving, let's give this triangle a size and name, including of the angle. So first, for the distance between San Juan and Bermuda, we would give them the name C, and as well as the small angle would be big C. And the distance between Miami Beach and Bermuda would be represented by A, and the opposite angle would be represented by big A. And lastly, Miami Beach and San Juan would be represented by B, and the opposite angle will represent big B. So now after we giving all of the triangle a name, including the size and angle, and let's start work on the problem. And as you see, we already have the equation of the law of sine. So the next step would be to put all of the information that we had into the equation. So now after we put all of the information that given from the diagram into the equation, as we see now, we need to solve for C. So the first step we should do is to let's simplify the equation. So after we simplify the equation, the next step we should subtract both sides by the volume of the yellow, as you can see here, and then we would get this. Now in the next step, since the green volume was multiplied by cosine C, so the opposite to undo this is to divide the green volume both sides, so this part could get cancelled. After that, then we would get this as the result. And then we would multiply both sides by the inverse cosine. So in this case, this should get cancelled. So now if you put everything on the calculator correctly, the answer should be angle C equal to 56.77 degrees. Okay, so now let's solve for angle B. And so now this time, we're not gonna use law of cosine since it's really too complicated. So our next step, we would use law of sine. Because as we already figured out, we already know the side C, and also we already figured out the angle C. So in which we would have all of the ratio here. So our next step is gonna be easier to find B by just put in these two into the equation. And this is the equation that you all should get. So next step, we would do the cross multiply. And then this would be the equation that you all should have same as me. And as you can see here, B was multiplied by 981. So in order for us to left B alone, we have to divide by both sides by 981. And then this would be the final equation that we need to solve. So after that, plug all this into the calculator. And the final answer is, and also due to my mistakes, as you could see here, sine, my equation is supposed to have sign in front of b, so then we would add sign on every b, which will be here. And then this would be the final equation. So after then we on this side we left with sign of b. So we need to have multiply both sides by inverse sign so they could get cancelled out. And this would be the final equation, and after you put this side into the calculation, and the final answer should be, and the final answer is b equal to 61.38 degrees. So next, after we already find the angle C and angle B, in which we already define two out of the three angle of the triangle. So we don't need to use the law of cosine or law of sine anymore, since we already have enough information. So our next step is to find A by using the sum of the triangle angle E equation. So angle A would equal to 180 minus angle B minus angle C. And if we put all of the number, and if we put all the volume of angle C and angle B into this equation, the equation should look like this. And if we plug in all of this equation into the calculator, angle E would have the sum of, and the angle A should have the sum of 61.85 degrees. And since the first question was asked us to define all of the angle of the Bermuda Triangle, and as we did, we already find angle C, angle B, and angle A. So now let's move on to question number 2. Okay, the second question asks us to find the distance between Skyline and Miami Beach. So let's name the distance between Scotland and Miami Beach as a- as a h, and then this angle would be represented by big H. So if we look at the diagram, let's see what information we already had based on this diagram. So first we know that the the angle of the skyline is 90 degrees, and we know the opposite sides of the skyline angle, which is 1034 miles. But what we don't know is the angle H and this angle. But what we know that these two angle make the sum of 90 degrees. And one of the reason why these two angle make the sum of 90 degrees is because of this a little square shape inside of the angle, which means that these two angle are the complementary angle. So then we would find the angle H by set up the equation as H equal to equal to equal to 90 minus angle B, which is 61.38 degrees, and in which the final answer of angle H would equal to 28.62 degrees. So now let's solve for H, in which in this problem we would use the law of sine to solve for H. So now, as we know, since we already know this size is 1034 and this side was represented by A, so let's assume that this angle was also represented by big A. And then with the size of H and angle H, we would assume that input these two into the sine of B, in which they will equal to big H instead of B, and then instead of B it would be H, and then we just forget about this one, since we already just need this. And then if we plug in all of the information into this equation, then the equation should look like this. And then what we supposed to do next, we need to cross multiplies, which is the equation would look like this. And then and then our next step is to divide by both sides by sine of 90. So in this case, h will be left alone since this is cancelled out, and then h is equal to 1034 times sine of 28.62 divided by sine of 90. And if you plug in this equation into the calculator correctly, the final answer should be h equal to 495.28 mile. So this would be our final answer of the question number 2. And that's the end. And this would be our answer, in which for the first question, angle from San Juan is 61.85 degrees. The angle from Bermuda Island is 61.38 degrees. And angle from Miami Beach equal to 56.77 degrees. And the second question, the distance between Scotland and Miami Beach is 495.28 miles. And that's the end.